A small box is a great project, something you can get done fairly quickly, requires some accuracy, right? As project gets smaller, you really need to dial in your accuracy. This doesn't require a lot of wood, so it's a great project. I'm also going to be using my hand plane to prep some of the materials. I'm going to use my shooting board to really dial in the fit of the various parts, the miters, things like that. The box is from an article from Fine Woodworking, Secrets to a Perfect Mitered Box. It's by Matt Kenney from the March-April 2015 issue. So he's got some great tips in here, instruction on how to make it, so we'll go ahead and use that as a guide. I've got some wood here. This piece of walnuts, air-dried walnut, it came from my neighbor. He got it, I think, from his grandfather, and the tree came, I think, from Idaho, and he cut it down, etc., etc. So he didn't really have use for the wood, so he gave me some of these nice air-dried pieces of walnut. So I'm going to use that for the outside of the box. I haven't decided yet what I'm going to use for the top. This particular one has curly maple, I think this is big leaf maple on the outside, and a sycamore top. I thought those went nice together. The interior just has a couple of smaller pieces here that you can move around to get to the various things in here. This is stuff my wife puts in here. It uses some nice hinges by Brousseau. So I've got hinges I just picked up. These have gotten pretty pricey. I don't know, maybe they're making them out of gold now. These were $40 for 2 hinges. Now, I will say Brousseau makes some great stuff, great hardware, but I don't know, the price is getting a little ridiculous. But anyway, that was what I had. That's what's used on this box. Nice thing about these is, you know, they're made really well, and they also have a stop at I think it's 95 degrees, so you don't have to worry about extra bits and pieces in here or the lid flopping all the way open. So they're great for this. So I'm going to go ahead and mill up the lumber, and we'll get started. In the article, Matt talks about matching the grain all the way around the box. Now, in order to do that, you have to be able to resaw a piece, and then you turn the pieces inside out and you wrap them around the box. Now, this piece of walnut isn't thick enough to resaw to do that, so I'm going to lay out the parts, you know, side, front, side, back, just in a row. So I'll get the grain match on 3 of the 4 seams. I'll put the unmatched seam in the back, so you know, that's going to work out just fine. So this has a nice, you know, relatively straight pattern going through it, but it's at an angle. So I'm going to make the box the same size as Matt's box, so it's about 10 by 6. And so that means I need 10 plus 6 plus 10 plus 6, about 32 inches plus a little extra. So I can get that easily out of here. You know, even if I angle it, the box is going to be about 3, I think he just says 3¼ inches tall. So I'm going to lay this out, cut a piece at this angle that's the correct width, get as much as I can out of it. I'll mill it to thickness. I forget what the thickness is, but I'll go ahead and do that. And then we'll start cutting the parts to length. I've got this laid out. I've got a straight edge on either side here. I'm at about 3 3/8. So I'm going to draw some lines on here. Then I'll go to my radial arm saw, cut it roughly to length here. And then on the band saw, I'll go ahead and cut this. I'll probably cut a little bit wider than it is right now. And then I'll start flattening it, make sure it's nice and straight. And then once I know it's straight, I'll get it down to the final thickness. And then I'll deal with the edges after that. Okay, I've got this cut to thickness and width now. I'm now going to cut the pieces to length. So I need a 10-inch piece, a 6, a 10, and a 6. Of course, I'll square up the ends first before I do that. Now, if you do the resaw technique that Matt mentions in the book, when you flip these boards around so the inside becomes the outside, you're probably going to get a little grain mismatch. So you would want to cut this wider than you're going to want to end up. Because I'm not doing that, I'm not going to have to worry about that mismatch later, so everything's going to line up just fine. I'm not concerned about the width of the kerf. Within 1/8 of an inch, the grain's not going to change that much. So I'm just going to go cut these to the 4 lengths, and we'll be ready to go start cutting the miters. So I'm squaring up an end here, and I'll turn the board around. And the minimum I can set my stop is about 11 or 12 inches. So I'm setting it to 20 inches and then using a 10-inch spacer to make this next cut. The sides are 4 inches shorter. They're 6 inches. So I'm cutting a 4-inch spacer, and I'll use that next to my other 10-inch stop to make the cuts for the sides. That looks okay, and I think both sides look about the same, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to end that, making sure, okay. And I'm going to use the triangle marking method to mark which one goes where. So bottom of the triangle here, top of the triangle there, and then left and right. And that now, of course, tells me which side is in, which side is up, which one goes where. So now I can go cut my miters. So I've got my miter sled on here. I've got a backer, got the blade tilted. I've cut into a backer board here, and I'll go ahead like Matt does. I'll just line this corner up with that edge and make my cuts. Of course, I'm making sure that my triangle, the open part of the triangle, is always facing down here. Okay, those miters look pretty good, but they could be better. So I'm going to use my donkey's ear to shoot them a little bit, and I'm also going to make sure that the parts are all the same length. Aren't those sweet? So I'll put them back to back here and make sure. There we go. Okay, let's see how this looks. Sweet. Before we start cutting the grooves, we need to smooth the edges of the sides. I don't want to do that afterwards because that would affect the fit. So I'm going to skip a little bit here, and I'm going to show you how I smooth the side edges before the grooves are made. Now, it's difficult, of course, to balance my plane on this 1/8 inch strip here and take one nice controlled pass. So I'm going to use my shooting board. This is short enough where I could do this easily in the shooting board. I've already done it on my shorter pieces, the side pieces, just to make sure it was working. And yeah, just one pass gives me a nice thickness there. As I'm taking those shavings, I'm taking off my marking. So I've transferred my marks to the inside here, just on a piece of tape. So I'll go ahead and finish up these other ones. Now I'm looking on here to see which way the grain's going. It looks like it's slightly raising up that way on this edge. So I'll put it on here like this. I'm, got my plane up against the side of the shooting board here. I'm going to hold that nice and tight against there, and one pass. So I'm constant pressure there. And I'm getting this nice long shaving, so I'll do the same thing on the other side, and I'll continue to do this. To set up for making the grooves, we need to make a couple of test cuts in two pieces, such that the piece that's left over next to the kerf fit into each other like this. So this is the goal here when setting up the saw. So next I'll show you how I cut the grooves. I'm set up now to do the grooves on the inside, so it gets a groove top and bottom, same distance in, 1/8 of an inch from each side. The groove is at 3/16 deep, so I've made a test cut in a piece here that measures out fine. Remember, test cuts in two pieces. And I'll go ahead and cut the grooves in all these parts.